Western Washington area. There's several reserve departments that are sending their folks through Lakewood. And the academy is Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 10 p.m. and then all day Saturday, like 9 to 5 or something to that effect. And it was a good 6 months of doing that 3 days a week to meet the, and the Reserve Academy is I think in some ways an abbreviated full-time academy. With at least ours had a huge emphasis on procedural law and more of the cognitive side of things, but there was still some defensive tactics and that kind of thing. So once you get through that process, then that's when you start your field training time. Currently you have a year to get through the check rides with a senior officer, a full-time man or woman, and they put you through the same ringers to make sure that you're competent, which I think is phenomenal. And then you can apply to be solo qualified. So ultimately the process is, the first step is to get on their website and reach out to the reserve coordinator, and then submit a written application that then is put you in the pipeline for a written, a physical, an oral board, lie detector test, and then or polygraph, and then onto the Reserve Academy. Does that kind of answer your question, Ken?
Yeah, I think that the point here that I was hoping that everybody would gather is that it is no easy process.
No.
Not everybody can just become a reserve officer.
Not at all.
It's very, would you say not arduous, but I don't know, challenging, and anyway.
Well, I tell you, Ken, I was impressed that, in many ways, the process was more challenging than to become a firefighter. And there's a lot of people testing to be firefighters, don't get me wrong. So that in and of itself makes it challenging, but the background check, the depth that the Lakewood police investigators went was quite thorough, and rightfully so, right? Because you're putting a lot of trust in these people. So there's a lot of people that get washed out of the process, even though it's a volunteer position, because there's too much on the line to just let anybody in. Yeah.
What activities are open to you as a reserve officer? What specialties, and what is your activity?
Maybe
So
I'm sorry, Travis, just to back up a little bit from that, Alan, maybe if I may ask, maybe you can explain what does a reserve officer do, and then maybe you can talk about the specialties if there is.
Sure. A reserve officer obviously has to work around their own work schedule from whatever their other occupation is. So we have a lot of flexibility afforded to us as far as our specific hours, and we have minimum hours per month. But the vast majority of guys will pick a shift that is commensurate with their other profession. So for example, I get off about 3 o'clock from the fire department. So I'll scoot over to the police department and I'll work swing shift typically. And as a reserve, you work patrol. So you don't do other specialties. Those are reserved for full-time folks, for detectives and K9 and PT, MPO and all those other things. So we're there to augment or help bolster the in the street patrol force, to help with the incredible number of calls that they run on a daily basis, and to be extra officers on some of these chaotic scenes for safety reasons. I think a little bit of a unique animal in that I am part of a specialty, but I'm not as a police officer. Like I said, I've been with the fire department for 20 years and a medic for a large part of that time. So I also serve as the tactical medic on our SRT team, which is, serves high risk warrants and that kind of thing. So I am able to serve in that capacity, and but as a medic. So, yeah.
And one of your primary goals, or not goals, but jobs, is really to help transport, I don't know, prisoners to the jail to keep, so that officers can stay on the street, as it were. But you also can do anything that a full-time officer can do, you can be involved. Is that
Yes,
correct?
in yes, that's correct. I have a limited commission. So my commission to be a police officer only applies while I'm on duty and in the city of Lakewood. So I can't be off duty at the airport, and at that point I'm a citizen. But yeah, and it surprised me, Ken. In the fire service, volunteers are kind of, there are some organizations, I should say, that kind of look down on volunteers. I don't think West Pierce is that way, but we don't have volunteers. The men and women of Lakewood Police have been incredibly gracious to me and have shown me a tremendous amount of respect. And I'm not just there to transport people to the jail to keep officers on scene, although I try to do that as much as I can. But they treat me like just another Joe and another officer, which is all the more reason why I like to try to spend at least 2 days a week down there, so I don't betray that trust. And I can continue to prove to them that I belong there and can be an asset in some capacity. And it's paid off, like I said, just tremendously for I think for both organizations to be able to be able to wear both hats. I've had countless times where I'm on duty as a police officer and medical aid call comes out and I'm the first one there, and I of course carry a kit with me and am able to, I think, make a difference with some of these folks. Yeah.
Well, interesting. Chief.
I want to add too that thanks to Travis, officers on our department have medical training that is far beyond what most police departments have. And it's a lot of that is thanks to Travis and his willingness to not only be a reserve for us and do the work himself, but to teach our other officers about how to apply tourniquets and things like that. And we've gotten multiple compliments from doctors even saying they can't believe that a lowly police officer actually applied a tourniquet so well. So a lot of that credit goes to Travis.
Very cool. Are you, as part of your goal, to become a full-time officer, or are you just happy to ride around in a police car?
Yeah, part of me, Ken, would love to work there full-time, because they're absolutely incredible people at LPD. Unfortunately, I'm not this happy with my fire department either. So
Right.
Yeah, I'm kind of milking both. So I'm content where I'm at. And then as far as the program, there are officers that are younger that are reserve officers at LPD that are seeking employment as a full-time guy. That's a pretty common thing. They had a great success story last year. LPD hired a younger guy that had been a Lakewood Police Explorer, went through that, and then went to school and then became a reserve officer. And golly, this last spring, I believe, early spring, he graduated from the State Patrol Academy. So he had gotten hired there, and it was a great success story. And it's kind of cool that the police department has invested so much in him, because our ideals and principles and have been instilled in him from a young age, and continue to, I think, make the law enforcement world better as a result of it. So yeah, there's a mix. There's some young folks and there's some other older guys like me. I know another reserve officer also works for King County Corrections. Another two of them, to include Grant, were former full-time Lakewood police officers that have stayed on as reserves while they continue their other pursuits. Grant just joined the fire department here, but still has a very strong camaraderie for the men and women of Lakewood. So he's still serving in that capacity.
Thank you very much. I have one other question. Maybe, I don't know, either you or Chief Zarro, if you can answer. Is there an active recruiting effort for reserves?
Chief probably handled this better than me, but my understanding is they're still, for Lakewood, still looking for one more police officer. And I believe that, well, the current academy is still going on. So I would assume that they're going to do another academy next year. So Chief, maybe help me take my foot out of my mouth. It's really outside of my wheelhouse.
We do some recruiting for the position of reserve officer. Not a ton of hard recruiting like we would for a full-time officer, but we do some recruiting, and the academy now, just like everything else, has been delayed because of COVID. So we don't know when our next one will actually be, but some of that depends on the demand too, and not just from us, but from other agencies.
That is a great segue to, it just struck me as, can you actually have academy for full-time officers when you got COVID going on? Is that possible?
It is possible. Well, the academy, the state academy, did shut down for a time. They just recently brought the existing classes back, and we had 2 people that we were set to hire that we had academy spots for, not necessarily dates, but all that has been suspended until further notice because of COVID-19 and not knowing exactly when the academy is going to start back up fully yet, or what it's going to look like when it does. So these are going to be changed permanently when this is all over. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but it has definitely delayed things. And who knows with the economy if people are going to be hiring as much or what that's going to look like too.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Travis, thank you for coming and talking with us. I also want to point out that you sort of skated over this a little bit, but reserve officers are 100% volunteers. They do not get paid. So, you know, I have a lot of respect for reserve officers go out and do what they do. So thank you for your service to our city.
Thank you, Ken.
And I have a question before you guys get off of this. How often do they take applications? Do they take them continuously? And how many openings are there approximately?
We do take them continuously. We don't necessarily have a hard number that we want to get to. We just need to make sure that it's manageable. And really, because we do buy all the equipment for them and everything, but it's also about being able to teach them and have enough trainers while they're going through training to be able to train them properly. So we do like to keep the numbers manageable, and that's usually we look at like 6. And we're not there yet, but we're close.
Do reserve officers ever do traffic?
Yes, sir. While we're on patrol, we do traffic. We're not part of the specialty unit that does the investigation of severe accidents, but yeah, we do traffic. We respond to any 911 call that any other officer would respond to. Yes, sir.
Great. Thanks, Travis. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Travis. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken.
All right. Moving on. We are City Council liaison comments. That would be Councilmember Brandstetter. How are you?
Well, greetings. You know, I am well. Not that stir crazy, but you know, could get there to be able to go and do that. You know, clearly we've been working through council meetings in the same Zoom format during the COVID-19. So in that respect, we've been limited in the business that we can conduct to either essential or routine based on the governor's directives to be able to go and do that. Yeah, I've come across some things that I thought were of interest to you, and I've either forwarded them to Ken or asked them, Joanna, to forward them to you all. And so I'm hoping that that is filled somewhat of a void from the meetings, and I'm not really going to go over those items. But I should say that one of the things that there has been a good bit of interest in is that the council decided to go and ask for additional public comment relating to the issue of fireworks. In February, when we received your recommendation about keep restrictions the same, but launch a greater and more in-depth education program, that it wasn't that the recommendation wasn't well received, but this was a year of where we were going to end up doing something with the fireworks regulation because of a matter in the city code that had a conflict with the state law that we have to correct. It had to do with what kind of a penalty and offense is a fireworks violation. And so since we were going to fix that, we thought we would look at it. This Zoom format, while we received some written input, was kind of deemed by the council inadequate to get a real good understanding from people that were there, and that we wanted to be able to do something that allowed people on all sides of this issue to have some face-to-face interaction with the council. And right now we've pushed that off with the idea of looking at July 20th. And July 20th was a date that we decided we would have a regular session in the council chambers. We're anticipating that we'll be in a time period when that is allowed. And we'll be able to go forward with that. Plus, we'll be dealing with people who aren't trying to think about what was it like 10 or 11 months ago, but we'll have something more recent. I would say that most of the comments that came in were folks that were, I think the nature of the question that was asked, looking for some greater restriction on the dates. On the other hand, most of the comments also were complaining about fireworks that are already banned. The bottle rockets and the very large things to do that. And very few of the comments had much to offer or even consideration about how would something get enforced. So I'm not sure where that is going. I would tell you that I don't believe there's a consensus in any particular direction on the council. Again, July 20th is when we're going to have it back on our agenda and hopefully allow the public to interact with us in a variety of ways. I think the council is looking to do some due diligence and working with the city manager in that the COVID-19 is most definitely having a revenue and financial impact on the city. That's going to result in needing to begin to make some budget adjustments for 2020, and then have a consideration, Zach, for what the next biennial budget in 21 and 22 looks like. Revenue data lags in time. So we're taking a look at some data that's just getting ready to come in here now. And the city manager plans to speak to what the data that we have is showing to the council at the meeting on June 15th. So that the estimates run from how do we try to save $3 or more million a year for the rest of the year above what we had budgeted. We'll see where that goes, of where the council, the city manager, and the department heads, including the chief, struggle with that issue. We are scheduled to have a joint meeting with you on June 22nd. We've held joint meetings via Zoom with a couple of the advisory groups, but the good news is the Open Public Meetings Act exception that makes Zoom type meetings the norm is scheduled to expire on June 17th. And the conventional wisdom is that it won't be extended again. So after June 17th, we'll be looking at sort of either maybe at least some hybrid type meetings to where there'll be a chance for you and the council to have some face-to-face interaction without needing all the electrons. The city did receive $1.5 million that is intended to be for COVID-19 relief and actions to help us pay for things that were extra that we had to do, but also that we can spend within the community. And we're primarily focused on that and looking for things that will be able to help businesses recover and get and successfully move through and reestablish their operations after COVID-19, particularly the smaller businesses that didn't have access to some of the other programs that were there, as well as some funding to help some of our human services agencies deal with some folks that have really gotten into a pinch, particularly to make sure that we avoid homelessness situations. However, we haven't made a lot of definite decisions about how to use that money because we have until October to spend it, and we're sort of waiting until we get towards July and we find out what the federal government is going to do with some of the programs that they have that they put together, but that are due to expire in July, and we just so that we don't duplicate and we can focus our money on some real local needs that aren't being met otherwise. So we'll go to that. The word today is that phase 2, which is going to allow some revived economic activity, particularly in restaurants and retail stores, is likely to be approved for Pierce County on June 8th. That there's this process through the health department system that allows us to move through that. And that's the expectation on the part of the Pierce County folks that have submitted the request up to the state level to do that. So that would mean we get a decision so that next Monday would be a go ahead to do that. And as a part of that, Pierce County is holding an event tomorrow at Clover Park Technical College to make distributions of personal protective equipment to business owners so that they have what they need to be able to open them back up under the rules of the phase 2 guidelines. And that distribution of things is going to be taken. The city's economic development folks are getting the word out to businesses so that they can ask that. Yes, I don't really have anything else. The council did have some discussions about what is going on in the country. Okay, and you know, and noted though that we're largely our citizenry are in a are in restrained mode, and all the communications I've gotten from within the city are folks that are very, very focused on keeping it that way here, even though we are a very diverse community that has significant residents of the range of minorities, including African Americans. But Mr. Chair, I'd be glad to field any questions or dispel or confirm any rumors that anybody on the committee has.
Thank you, Council Member Brensted. Any questions for? Okay, no questions. Thank you. Appreciate the update. Next, we would have the Youth Council comments. So Lenise, you here? There you are.
I'm here. Hi, guys.
Hey.
For Youth Council, there's not really much to report. We have not been able to meet due to social distancing measures being taken on Monday. We were given the opportunity to watch that City Council watch our video that we had made initially for the Youth Summit that we have planned this year. I'm talking about what youth voice and youth leadership means to us. But other than that, right now, youth applications are open for next year. And we will be passing on the baton to students who sign up. And that's really where we stand as a youth council. We have a lot of communication from our coordinator, Cameron Fairfield. He's done a great job of emailing us what's still able for us to be able for us to do. But that's really it. Also, this is my last year in youth council because I'm a senior, so I'll be too old. But I would like to thank you guys for my time, or you guys letting me be a liaison for PSAC. It's been one of my favorite extracurricular activities, and I'm gonna miss it a lot. And I hope that the kids next year enjoy it just as much.
Well, I would think I speak for everyone and say we're going to miss you. So, and if someone doesn't come to replace you, then that means you have to stay. Is that how that works?
Oh yeah. Yep. I like that sound.
Okay. Good for you. Any questions?
I do. I want to ask her when her graduation is.
Oh yeah.
I turned off my video instead of unmuting myself. My school, I go to Harrison Prep, and we received our diplomas our diploma covers last week. On the 11th, we'll have the link to watch our ceremony recording that the school put together. And then on the 15th, we'll have a parade where we receive our actual diplomas, and that will be our last day of school. If you guys would like to watch the commencement, I'm in a meeting. Oh, Mama should take the boys. Okay, I'm also babysitting. But this is my brother, guys. If you guys would like the link to watch our commencement ceremony, I can email it to somebody and you guys can have it to watch. It'll be on the 11th at 5 o'clock.
Yes, go ahead and email that to me and I'll make sure that everybody gets it, please. We'd love to cheer you on as much as we can.
Thank you.
Any questions? So, go ahead, Chief.
One quick one, Lenise, what are your plans for next year?
Next year, I'm gonna go to UW-Tacoma, and I'm gonna major in economics. I have some big things in plan. Like beyond school, I'm gonna be starting the college age chapter for our Pierce County NAACP down there, and get more involved with another group that's based out of Tacoma called the Black Collective and take on some leadership roles. So I'll still be local or really close to being in Lakewood, and I would love to continue to volunteer here as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. So since we're going to be, our next meeting is August, does that mean, is this officially your last meeting? Or it would be August?
Well,
No, you would. Joanna's saying, yes, this is your last one.
still allowed to be at the meetings. I'd be more than happy to show up.
This would be her last one technically as the youth council, but you are always welcome to come as public. So we certainly wouldn't turn you away.
I will see you guys in August then.
Awesome. Thank you. No other questions. Let's move on to fire department comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate it. I'll try to stay brief here. As everyone knows, we've been kind of in this new kind of normal, if you will, with masks and social distancing and not being able to really participate in a lot of events like we like to. But, you know, with phase 2 coming around the corner, we might be able to go out and have a burger or something like that. But our lobbies are still closed. And with phase 2, we're going to continue with that at least until phase 3. But on the lobby doors, there's information. We have people, if you just call our business line, we have people inside the fire stations that can take a phone call. So if you have an issue, you need to drop off plans because you're a contractor, or you just have a general question, someone will be able to answer those questions for you right away. We're still, you know, responding to lots of calls, you know, sick people, fires, things like that. We did have a large fire 2.5, almost 3 weeks ago, where it displaced 8 families. We're still in the process of trying to help those families find permanent housing and just simple basic needs. We have a nonprofit arm of the fire department, and just recently through some help with Lakewood Rotary and Councilman Brandstatter, we were able to get just a queen bed for someone that had their home looted. A lot of those apartments over there had some theft and some looting over the last couple of weeks. So a lot of folks lost more than just the clothes on their back, a lot of their personal belongings too. And with the new normal, we're trying to engage as much as we can on social media, through Instagram, through Facebook, and our Twitter account. So we're trying to push out safety videos. We've had some of the firefighters follow some of the LPD officers and reading child books and things like that. We've had a good response to families and lots of likes on there. Fireworks, kind of a different feel this year. Lots of people have been asking, hey, what's going on? Typically this time of the year, we're probably usually up to 10 applications for fireworks stands. Currently, we only have 2 applications. A lot of people are just kind of wait and see type of thing, but we don't know if we're gonna get up to our normal capacity, which is about 13 to 15. So we might just be a little bit short this year, which would be really fine with us. Let's see, we did finish, we had a recruit academy. We were just a little bit over halfway through during this whole COVID thing. We stopped for a few weeks and then we ramped it back up, and we had the concept of working in small pods. So none of the recruits were in close proximity to each other, but they were able to graduate this last Friday. So we're super excited about that. And then because we do just an entry-level list, that expired. And so currently, if you go to our website, we have information. We're accepting applications for firefighter through the month of June. So if you know anyone that's looking to be a firefighter or at least get on that list, we haven't really decided if we're gonna 100% hire, but we're moving in that direction because we do have retirees each year, and we need to backfill those folks. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot more. Any questions?
Is there an age limit on the firefighter application?
No, 18 years of age.
I think Ray was interested. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Thanks.
Come on.
Appreciate that. Any
No
questions?
problem.
Okay, no questions. Let's move on to police department comments. Chief Zarro.
Well, where do we start? First, I do have to point out that it looks like Ken's pretend background was modeled after Alan's real background.
Yes, indeed.
So we have sort of emergency stacked on top of emergency, stacked on top of emergency. We started out with COVID, we're managing that pretty well. And then, the economic fallouts from that are coming and starting to hit us. So we're dealing with that. And then of course the national civil unrest that hasn't escaped us, dealing with that. And on top of that, our own officer involved shooting that occurred 3 weeks ago. So there's been no shortage of priorities around here lately. Starting off with COVID, I think we managed that very well. We readjusted some staffing to thin out who was at the station, just and focus on patrol, our primary response, just so, by thinning things out, there was obviously less chance of something spreading around. So we were pretty successful in that. We had 3, I think, officers get tested, but all came back negative, and nobody needing to be quarantined. So we, knock on wood, I think got pretty lucky. We are back to essentially normal duties around here, with the exception of our lobby. That is still closed to the public, but if somebody comes here, there's a number on the front door. They'll call the desk and somebody will go out and help them with what they need. And we have our DV kiosk that's here in the station that's still operational. So people, when they do come here for that, we still bring them in and let them do that. We have, we stocked up well on PPE and hand sanitizer and things like that. So I think we managed that and are still managing that pretty well. Moving on to the economic stuff, it's going to be what it's going to be. We don't really know the full impact yet. So I can't really speak too much to that other than the academy being put on hold, and with the budget, we don't know when we'll be able to hire again. So everything's just sort of in limbo for that. We did have our officer involved shooting about 3 weeks ago. As per the new law, we have nothing to do with that investigation. It's outside agencies from Eastern Pierce County. I've been briefed on it a couple times, but not in super detail. And that investigation is still ongoing. The officer is on administrative leave, and I'll tell you that I'm not in a hurry to fire him. I'm not in a hurry to bring him back. I've heard I get pressure both ways. So we're going to wait and see what the investigation shows and go from there. The officer has been at home. We'll see what happens when he comes back. I will tell you, though, that there's some information that's out there that is not accurate, as is usually the case nowadays. It's not all accurate. I'm not faulting the people that share it or that quote it, but all I would ask you all is to just reserve judgment until we have everything in, and then we'll respond accordingly.
Chief, just real quick, do you have a timeline as to when this investigation will be completed?
The investigation itself everything except toxicology should be done by next week. Toxicology, is, you may have heard in the past, takes about 6 weeks for the medical examiner to get that, and they don't usually have a ruling, even though the toxicological results may not have any bearing on what happened with the shooting. The ME won't release any final determination until they have that, and that's usually about 6 weeks. We probably have another 3 to 4 weeks before those come in. And then the whole packet will go to the prosecutor, and we'll have some time before that they make a decision. In the meantime, once the investigation is done, we will do our own internal review, and we'll determine, what policy violations are out there, what training implications there are, and what should have or could have been done different, if anything at all, and we'll take action based on that. But in the meantime, we all have to be patient and let the investigation finish up, and then we'll make decisions based on the evidence. And then once we get that, we'll be completely transparent with whatever the investigation shows and with whatever our actions are in response. So any questions based on that?
I am curious, is there any, you mentioned misinformation. Is there something specific that you could reference that is misinformation right now?
The idea that, and I've seen this from a couple of emails that I get, and I'm very accessible. I have my email address on our website, so I've received quite a bit of email about this over the weekend. Mostly over the weekend and through today. But the one thing that's referenced frequently is that he was shot with his hands up, and that's not the case. We know that for sure. And we know there was a gun. He did have a gun. So we know those things for sure. There's a lot of other detail that needs to be evaluated and discovered. But we do know that that's the specific misinformation that I've been seeing.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of excessive speed occurring and dangerous driving habits. How are you going to pull these people in again after the economy opens up?
Yeah, that was an interesting byproduct of the shutdown and the quarantine. Is that people were out and and it wasn't just us seeing it. It's a nationwide. People just going crazy on the roads, partly because there's no traffic and because there's no traffic to impede them. So the next time when congestion does come back and you're sitting in traffic, just remind yourself that it's keeping people under control. But for us, specifically in Lakewood, once things get back to a routine and people are back to work and there's more traffic on the roads, we anticipate that it'll slow down, but we will also, do more of our speed emphases that we tried last year, just to try and get the message back out that we need to slow down because traffic is really, the speeds have gotten out of control.
Do you have any estimate on how much accidents have increased?
No, we do those, we look at those quarterly, and we won't really get the full scope of that until the second quarter report comes out.
Yeah, because there were a couple pretty serious accidents.
There were. Yeah, there were very serious, and one, actually, I think both were impaired drivers on top of speed. So,
Oh, okay, so it wasn't just speed, it was impairment. Okay. I guess there were three. There was one on South Tacoma Way also. Some guy was going 100 or something like that.
yeah, and there was one on Bridgeport that I think everybody or a lot of people saw the picture of the car that was actually cut in half.
Yeah.
And, it's hard to imagine that the driver actually just walked, was fine, went to the hospital for observations, but walked away with bumps and bruises.
Mhm.
Pretty incredible. So,
And then there was one on Hipkins with a couple kids racing or something.
that was a drunk driver.
Ah, okay.
Okay, was there more? Chief, okay.
There is. So a little bit more. I do want to talk about some of what we've been seeing around the country and what we've been seeing locally and my approach to it. I don't know how many of you saw the Facebook post that we had or the letter I'd sent out, but watching the video from Minneapolis was horrific. I knew not just with the loss of life, but with what it was going to do to our credibility as a profession. And it was just heartbreaking to watch. And all of what we're seeing is largely predictable. And one of the things that you won't hear me do is defend anything that we do. I'm not going to make excuses for the officers involved. I'm not going to say, well, yeah, but this could have happened. It was just, it was wrong the way it all played out. And if you go back and look at our Facebook post and what we wrote it, you'll see where my opinion lies on that. As far as some of the unrest around here, we're monitoring it. There's two things going on, and we need to keep in mind that they're distinctly different. There's the people that are protesting for and demonstrating, both in memory of the people that have been lost or died, and also just for some institutional change and improvement. And then on top of that, you have criminals. And I know that a lot of people are saying, well, they're just acting out and, acting out their anger over these institutional injustices. That's not the case. These are distinctly separate groups. And the ones that are out breaking into businesses and looting are 100% taking advantage of the environment and of the situation that we're in. So we address those differently. With the demonstrators and the protesters, and we saw this in 2015, for those of you that were around, we had a decent sized group here at the station that for a couple days in a row, and we let them do what they were going to do. You weren't going to see our civil disturbance team out there forming a line for the sake of forming a line. And you wouldn't see that if we had one today, which we're waiting for. With our recent officer-involved shooting, it's likely that in the coming days we will see some sort of event here in Lakewood. And people if they're going to demonstrate, I 100% support their ability to do that, even if that means walking down Lakewood Drive and blocking traffic. That's perfectly acceptable under the circumstances. And that's what they'll be allowed to do. We're not going to go out. We'll actually probably block intersections for them. But that's not to say we won't be prepared for if things go back. If the other distinct group shows up and starts either disturbing or bothering or disrupting what they're doing, or breaking windows or committing crimes or burglarizing businesses or any number of criminal activity, we'll be ready for that as well. But you will not see a strong visible presence from us if all it is protesting and demonstrating. There's a lot of anger out there, and it's justified and righteous, and I think we can't be afraid of it. We can't look at people that are angry and yelling and say, oh, something bad's about to happen, we need to get out there and stop them. They need to express their anger and their frustration, so long as it's not done by hurting people or damaging businesses or damaging anything really. But that's my approach to that, and it was, it worked for us in 2015, and that's, we're going to try it again if it does come here. But that's where we're at. We don't know how long. We're prepared for this environment, however long it goes on. I would prefer that we get back to work and start working on being better. But if, we'll take whatever we're presented. And right now, this is the environment we're presented. But I can tell you too that I am working to just to develop better relations and better connections with the different communities in Lakewood, and I'm going to continue to do that. And hopefully, we'll see dividends in the years to come. But that's what I got to say about that.
Thank you, Chief. Is there any questions, Chief? Chief, I have just a quick question, and maybe even more of a little bit more of a comment, but watching that video, by the way, that I saw from Minneapolis on, I think it was Monday morning, was before kind of even hit the big news. I honestly was horrified at what I was watching. I could not believe what I saw. And you, as a former, I know I've never not been a full-time officer, but having some experience in law enforcement, I just could not imagine what was going on in that guy's head. And I defend officers generally. I kind of lean that way, but can you comment as to what that person might have been thinking? The officer, I mean?
I can, but I don't want it to come across as defending anybody. I think the biggest problem is that there can be such a divide built between us and the people we interact with, that we dehumanize them. We see them as just people that we're going to arrest or investigate, and we lose our appreciation for them just being people. And I think that is a huge part of it. Probably, there may have been some medical conditions contributing to that. But that's why in my statement, I said that, I didn't focus necessarily on the use of force, but then just how dismissive he was of the guy's pleas for help. And the one thing that I kept having in my head is, would we be any less angry if the officer wasn't kneeling on him, but was standing there and doing nothing while the person pled for, said he couldn't breathe for 10 minutes, stood there with the person on the ground saying he can't breathe and doing nothing. It would be just as bad. I shouldn't say just as bad, but that would be just as outrageous to me. That's the problem, and it's that indifference that, like I had mentioned before, that I think was the bigger issue. It's hard to, and that gets born out of routine and out of being callous and being just calloused over years of doing the same thing without paying attention to that separation that's building up between you and the people that you're dealing with.
I couldn't understand the three officers standing around with hands in their pockets watching.
Yeah, and here's what I'll tell you too. They had called for medical aid and they probably thought that was good enough. They called for medical aid and said, well, the medical aid's on their way here and that's good enough. And it's not.
Chief, I want to thank you for your comments for this specific situation, and at least what your plan is in Lakewood. I know a lot of things have occurred across the country, but not much can be done except what's going on right now, and relationships got to get better. But I appreciate your approach and the way you articulated what you plan to do in and around the area of Lakewood, your domain.
I would also recommend, if any of you have not actually read Chief Zarro's statement, you can find that on the website. I actually not retweeted, but reposted or shared that several times. So that was very poignant. So, or accurate. So thank you for that. Any other questions for the chief? Thank you. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. We have Summerfest has been canceled, obviously. Any comments about that or recruitment for PSAC, which has obviously been put on a hiatus at the moment?
Well, I do appreciate, I suspect Joanna got the answer about the number of potential committee members, the 7 to 15 mark. So at least I see what a target could be when something called normal is restored.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? All right, moving on, new business. So we're talking about the joint meeting with the city council on June 22nd. What do we need to do with that? Joanna, help me out here.
Sorry, everybody else can hit a space button and I have to find my mouse and move it and get it back in spot. Sorry. So in the past, because I have never attended one of these, it's always been you guys. In the past, we fill out the work plan and significant accomplishments, which I sent to everybody, which we'd already done. We were on it, luckily, before COVID happened. So we finished that, and essentially you're presenting this to city council on the 22nd and interact with them as to your work plan and how they feel about that and any changes they may have for that. And then, you know, your accomplishments, and obviously Councilmember Branstetter could speak to this more than I could.
Yeah, I would tell you that June 22nd is an awkward date that's been on the calendar for a long time, pre-COVID and going back. And so I would think about, you know, if you look at the work plan that you filled out, it probably isn't informed a lot by recent events. You know, if it was the desire of the committee to push that off until you had a meeting in August and were able to actually talk about a revised work plan, I'd be willing to take that back to my colleagues, or else if we go forward with June 22nd, expect that the discussion will ask, you know, what do you want to add or what do you want to do based on the variety of recent things that involve COVID and the situation locally and nationally in response to Minneapolis. So you know, I'm yeah, open to do that, but it's a question of what does the committee think it wants to do so that meeting with the council can be most productive. Probably the greatest discussion item that's going to continue to be there will be around the fireworks, although the council again has put off its consideration of that sort of thing until in July, and July 20th.
I move that we move that to August. Make a motion anyway.
I second that.
Anyone have
I
any
should
discussion?
talk.
Yeah.
I should actually unmute myself so that I could talk. There's been a motion in a second to would it be to table this until August?
Correct. That would be that's my motion.
Okay.
Well, you know, if that's what the committee wants, you know, then I would bring that forward to the city manager and the mayor to adjust the council agenda to a date in August or later, depending upon what all ends up on the council's agenda.
So is there any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to amend the motion to request the city council to delay our joint meeting until at least August.
Okay. Do we need
Acceptable
to
with
have a
the
second
second,
on that?
it's acceptable to the maker.
That's sure, it's fine with me.
So I will add something to this discussion in terms of the only thing that I would kind of push back on is I don't think our work plan is actually going to change. Whether we actually have any kind of significant progress on the work plan is really what for me is the question. Otherwise, what we put in the work plan is still the work plan. So can you guys think of anything else that might change in the work plan because of where we're at? Or will it still stay the same?
We're gonna have to delete some things from it, like Summerfest because it was canceled. Those 2 or 3 things that are associated with that. So we do need to have some form or some level of discussion before to clean it up anyway.
So do you guys see the work plan was sent out? I might be looking at the wrong document.
I'm looking
Joanna.
at the one at the bottom of today's agenda, at the bottom of the page there, almost at the bottom.
There are 2 pages. So sorry, I can hold it up. I don't know that any of you can read it from that far, but it is a second page and it does have the work plan. I will say that you have Summerfest on it, but you have other things to go over that meeting as well. So I don't know. I don't know. There are multiple things on there, so that's
I don't
one.
know. Just as a point of clarification for me, if you've got Microsoft Office on your machine, you can pull it up and it'll be a split screen that shows you everything that's involved. If you pull up that attachment or click on it, it'll show you the agenda on the screen and you can read and follow along.
So what I'm looking at, I can actually, if you give me permission, Joanna, I can share what I'm looking at on my screen.
Please do, because I have no idea how to do that yet.
Okay, so when I click on share, it says host disabled participants sharing screen. So you'd have to go
Find it.
to the bottom where it says share screen and click on the little arrow and say participants can share. The bottom of the
All panelists who can start sharing. Did that work?
yes, thank you.
Yes.
Oops.
And while he's doing that, the chief had to sign off. I don't know if he'll be able to come back or not, but just so you're aware.
Thank you. So this is the document I'm looking at. Can you guys see that?
Okay. There's a second page. There's another one. Maybe before that one?
Yeah, that's
no.
it.
Oh,
There we
yeah, got it.
That's the one I was talking about.
That's the same as I was talking about as well.
Okay, so how does this change because we can't, because of COVID, this presentation, which is really this presentation, right?
Correct.
Does this change because of COVID that requires us to delay till after our August meeting?
I will also add, again, my understanding is that you would be presenting the page that we're currently looking at. The council can always, in any time, suggest changes and additions to your work plan, from my understanding. So I'm not sure.
That is the way it's worked in the past. That's the way it's worked in the past. We go in with the sheet that has the information on it. We discuss it, and then they either add to or or actually turn our direction in another, turn us in another direction for future things to research or prepare for or present to them for the following year, for the coming year.
So again, I'm not, to me, it doesn't matter either way. I just want to make sure that we're actually accomplishing something that will matter after our August meeting. So if it's just a matter of, we're not sure if we're going to be meeting June 22nd, because there is a chance that that will not happen. Is that correct?
I think that's for council member.
Councilman, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to keep the agenda for, you want to keep the meeting for June 22nd, then it will occur. But the question is whether it will occur where we're sitting together in a room or whether it occurs like this meeting is. I guess that I would tell you that one way allows for discussions much easier for ideas from all sides to be considered more easily than others.
Okay.
To the extent that there are public safety issues that relate to health and public safety issues that relate to criminal activity and that relate to the public. I think that if you're want to get your own thoughts together about what you might want to see in 20 and in 21, that you're interested in trying to move forward, you could take some time because you haven't had the same number of meetings this year that you might normally have had leading up to this point. Yeah, but on the other hand, if you want to meet on the 22nd and do that, that's fine. Again, I'm willing to take forward a request to allow you to have one more meeting to get your thoughts together about the role that you want to play. But that is, of course, your collective decision if you want me to do that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yes, Julie.
Sorry, I also just remembered that Heidi Wachter gave us pretty strict instructions that we're not allowed to do any voting or decision making at this meeting because of this. I will say that I wish that Mike was still, sorry, the chief was still here. I didn't get all those particulars, he did, but I know that she told us that the minutes were pretty much the only thing we could decide via this platform. So.
Well, yeah, I guess that would say that maybe that is relates to whether there's a formal motion, but that wouldn't preclude me from saying that there was a consensus and going back to the city manager and the mayor around adjusting the council agenda.
So what we're saying is we would basically nullify the motions and just make a consensus or recommendation. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, and I would take that forward and advocate for that.
Okay, so
I'm writing that right now.
Okay, great.
Thank
So
you.
is there a consensus then on the committee to present that to the council so that we can delay the work plan presentation until after our August meeting? If you're for that, just raise your hand or. Okay, looks like we have a consensus then. So we'll delay the June 22nd presentation until, I don't know when, until, I guess you'll figure that out, right?
Yeah, but at least until you've had another meeting.
Correct, correct. All right, thank you. Any other comments about that or questions? Perfect. Preview of next meeting, which is August. I think in the last time we had, for this meeting, actually, we had Councilmember Moss scheduled. Is that correct? I don't remember now. Yeah, so the coalition presentation, which was Councilmember Moss. Is that right? You're not mute. You're still muted, Joanna.
Sorry, I also have somebody in my hallway too, so I was a little distracted. I apologize.
No.
I did not remember who that was, and I was going to ask you who I was supposed to reach out to, so I absolutely will reach out to her and confirm that she can still make the next meeting, which seems to be, oh, we bumped everything. That's why. Sorry.
Right.
So yes, I can certainly bump her to the next meeting and ask if that works for her.
Perfect. And then, so that would be our agenda basically on August 5th. Yes. James.
Yes, we also had another task to go out and talk with Tillicum Woodbrook community. It was supposed to have been done in February. We actually went in March, same night that the chief was there, as a matter of fact. And there was nothing significant or any major complaints that were issued by the people in the community. We just, Mark and I went. We listened to what they had to say, and we told them what the PSAC does and offered them an opportunity to bring someone forward or submit someone to become a member. And we left it at that. Mark, you agree?
That was great. Took us longer to get there than we spent at the meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm going to have to sign out because I've got to sign in to another meeting.
Okay, that's a bummer. But thank you, Councilmember Branstetter. We'll see you on the rebound. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so we're good with the next meeting? August is great. We're done. Okay, reports from boards and members. You kind of just gave us a little bit of a report on one of them, James.
Yes, it was part of the new business piece that was in the paragraph above.
And North Lakewood hasn't met.
Can I ask James, what meeting was it? I apologize.
Tillicum Woodbrook, it was in the new business segment of the minutes.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, gotcha. I'm tracking now. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Is there any reports from boards? Community outreach? Okay, any other pending policy?
Well, excuse me, I
Go ahead.
attended the Springbrook Neighborhood Association just before the big closure, and they didn't have any major complaints. They'd like to see more visible police presence, patrols in the area, but that was the only comment they made regarding public safety.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to, anything else on that? And so I have something for the good of the order.
Can I bring up one thing?
Yes, who's that?
So, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Hey, Mark.
Mostly stay quiet here and just listen. I think what I want to bring up for per se my neighborhood association, which is around the lakes here. And one of the concerns I have sitting here looking out at the lake is the fact that I see more and more individuals out there with children without jackets on. Well, that's one of the things I see out there. I just kind of find it hard to believe that somebody would actually allow their kid out there on some kind of motorcraft or whatever without a jacket on. And then two, there's some, like the excessive speed. Sometimes there's some excessive speed or recklessness of boaters or motorcrafts out on the lakes. And Steilacoom doesn't get as monitored as much by the Marine unit as American Lake does. And I understand the reason why, because of the size. However, because it's not monitored as much, sometimes things get a little wild over here per se. My neighbors might not appreciate that, but as I was yelling out to some kids last weekend about having jackets on, and there was actually an adult with them, and he said, well, they're not my kids, the mother's around the bend here. My thought is, well, I'd rather see them have jackets on than have a recovery operation on here. So I just want to bring that to the committee in there, and hopefully get the Marine unit out a little bit more often. So.
Thank you for that. Okay, go ahead, Scott. Did you have something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Mark, too, you can always, once the Y opens, they have a free life jacket checkout. So if, you know, maybe you already know about all this stuff. So it's free. They can check it out for however long they want. You can also refer them to the fire department. We've got life jackets for $14.
Yes,
And-
yeah, we do know about that. In fact, I'm willing to offer my jackets.
Oh, yeah. And then our nonprofit cares, we can get, if anybody just doesn't have the money for it, we can get them a free one. So I think everybody probably knows that, but I just wanted to shout that out.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? Okay, one more thing I want to share with you guys. I'm not sure if any of you are aware of this. Can you see that? This is House Bill 1754. Are you aware of this? So I'm just going to bring it up because I don't know really what else to, how else. I was hoping that Councilmember Brandstetter could be here to kind of talk about this, but this is a bill that I'm trying to see where I can, where is the, sorry. So this is an act relating to the hosting of homeless by religious organizations. And the nutshell is that this bill was overwhelmingly passed in the legislature, signed into law, and will go in effect on June 11th. Basically what it is saying, and this is as far as I understand it from the comments at the city council meeting, was that religious organization and churches can open up their parking lots and business churches, whatever, to help house homeless, or and they called something like short-term people living in their cars and whatnot. So there's a bunch of criteria, and as far as I understand, that the counties and cities actually opposed this, but the legislature approved it, and therefore they have to do it. But the cities have to come up with MOUs that will not violate the law, but still gives them some kind of control. So anyway, my concern about this is that, which I voiced to the city manager and to others, that I'm thinking, even though I understand the heart behind the bill, I understand we want to try to help as much as possible, this seemed like a can of worms to me. And so I just wanted you guys to be aware of it. I don't know exactly what's going to happen or where it's going to go, but you can read it, House Bill 1754, look it up and make your own assessments. But technically speaking, the church down the street on Steilacoom could now become a homeless, not shelter, but anyway, it could be. And my heart goes out to them. I'm not trying to be snotty or anything. I'm just saying this could be, I don't know. And I don't know if, Scott, if you have any idea about behind this, because this would be sort of a public safety issue. Are you aware of this bill or how it might work?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I don't have a lot to comment on it. I know we were made aware of it a few weeks ago, but I don't have a lot of information. I'm definitely going to go back and do some digging. So.
Okay, that's all there is I have for you guys. I Don't know exactly what else to do about that.
One thing on that real quick, Ken.
Yes.
One of the things that comes immediately to my mind would be the sanitary aspect of this situation. So what
Right.
would that
And
ripple
it-
effect there?
Right, and part of the required MOUs would be that would have to be addressed, that sort of thing. So, but if any of you have saw, Olympia or Seattle or People's Park in Tacoma, that's the kind of thing that it scares me a little bit. Again, I hate to be kind of the naysayer, but is that really what we want? I don't know. It's horrible, but I don't know what else to say. So, any other comments? Okay, I will stop sharing. I think that is it. If there's no other comments, thank you guys for all being here tonight. Sorry we went a little bit long, but it's been a lot of months since we've met. So if there's nothing else, no good of the order, we will call us adjourned.
Thank you. Night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
See you in
Bye.
August.